Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about King Kong. And this movie came out in 1976 and stars Jeff Bridges. And I've seen this movie once before, like 10, 12 years ago, and I didn't really remember much about it. And there were only like a few parts that I could remember. I remembered the ending and maybe a couple of parts towards the middle, but that was about it. And upon revisiting this movie, there were some things that I liked about it. There were some things to appreciate about it. And I haven't seen the original from 1933. I'll get to it one day. But I'm just going to talk about one thing in particular before I get into my actual thoughts on the movie. And from my understanding, the original was like an hour and a half long, just 90 minutes. It was really short from what I know, and this movie is like 2 hours and 15 minutes, somewhere around there. And the Peter Jackson one from 2005, that's like 3 hours long, and I mean there's an extended edition that's like 3.5 hours long basically. And I've only ever seen the 3 hour long version for the Peter Jackson film, and I can only compare this King Kong movie to the Peter Jackson King Kong movie. And a lot of people do complain that it takes too long for things to get going, and they don't get to Skull Island until like an hour through the movie. And in this movie, they're all on the boat, ready to go, and they leave within the first scene of the movie. However, the biggest difference between the Peter Jackson movie and this movie, for me, is that I find this one to be the most boring, despite it being shorter and I guess technically faster, if you were to say it that way. I find it to be really dull, mainly because I just don't find a lot of things to be interesting, and this movie does take a long time, like just for a scene to end, and it really takes its time, and it feels slower to me. Whereas I feel like the Peter Jackson film, even though like it's longer and you get so much from like every scene that probably doesn't need to be there, you can argue about that in the comments below. However, personally, I just don't feel the runtime that much, mostly because I think it's really fast paced and it's never boring to me. Sure, you could say it's too long, but I wasn't bored while watching that movie. This one, I was really bored while watching it, and there are things to appreciate about it, and there are some changes between this movie and the Peter Jackson film, and what I can imagine would be the 1933 film, and there are things that are a bit different. And I believe in like the Peter Jackson film, they were just going to the island because like Jack Black's character was in debt, and like he was trying to make a film, and he was making a movie while on the boat. Then they moved to Skull Island, started shooting and recording on the island, and then they go after King Kong to kidnap him and bring him to mainland for entertainment, and that's what they do there. And in this movie, there's a few differences, even though it is very similar. There's a character who is trying to get oil or something and just make a lot of money off of that, and things don't really go well. And I feel like I'm gonna spoil a little something that happens. Like, it's a joke, but for me, it was really funny. And I'm just gonna say it. So they find out that there's a lot of oil, but you're gonna have to wait for it to age a little bit, like in nature's time, which would be in like say 10,000 years nature's time. In the meantime, you're probably gonna get like better mileage from mule pee. You're gonna get better mileage from mule pee, basically. And I thought that was hilarious, and there were some moments that were very funny to me. And I enjoyed the first half hour of this movie, and once we get to the half hour mark, that's when they get to the island. And in that first half hour, it's just kind of developing like where the story is kind of going, and giving you a sense of the characters and who they are, and I enjoyed all of that. However, once King Kong is introduced, that's where the movie goes downhill for me because, one, King Kong never feels like he's a part of the environment. He just looks like a guy in the suit, and it is a guy in a suit, and I don't think it looks very convincing. I never feel as though he's like an animal. He always looks like a human just walking around like the forest, and like towards the end of the movie he just feels like a really gigantic human, and it always took me out of the movie. And whenever he would pick something up, they would just show his arm, like this much of his arm, and it would just keep going on forever, and it just feels like a mechanical hand. It never feels like it's a part of the environment. And I did not like the music in this movie. I thought it was really cheesy and dated, and it was very distracting to me, and I didn't really enjoy King Kong's like roar. It just didn't feel intimidating, and there were a lot of weird decisions that just did not pay off, and the movie always felt dated. I never felt as though I was like watching something that was timeless. I felt like I was watching a movie that was like capitalizing on what was popular at the time, and it just didn't feel like I was getting anything special out of it because of that. I thought the acting was very good, and no one stood out to me as bad. It was just the characters and the story was not very interesting. The pacing was slow, and I just couldn't get into anything because I couldn't believe what was being shown on screen. There's barely any action in the movie. And the only thing King Kong really fights, aside from everything that happens at the end, the only thing you really discover on the island that's not King Kong, like an actual creature, is a big snake. And that sequence lasts for like 2 minutes, if even that. It was really disappointing, and there was just nothing for me in this movie. I didn't hate it by the end of the day, but at the same time, I would have liked for there to be more. And sure, there were changes, and that made it slightly unique, that it tried something new, but at the same time, it just didn't pay off for me, and I'm never going to watch this movie again, and it was just really boring. And that was my biggest issue with it, is that it was just really boring for me, and I can't revisit a movie that puts me to sleep. And with all that being said, I'm going to give King Kong from 1976 a 5 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below what you thought of King Kong from 1976, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for X-Men Origins Wolverine. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.